This is Magic City Soccer, your home for everything you need to know about soccer in Miami-Dade County. Hello, soccer fans in South Florida and beyond, and welcome to our broadcast this afternoon. I'm here joined with Abel Yarola. Abel, how you doing, pal?
We're doing great.
We are doing great, yes, and we have a special guest with us. We have a lot of questions to ask, so we're going to cut right to the chase. We are speaking, of course, with Mr. Jorge Mas, managing partner of Inter Miami CF. Mr. Mas, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share our love and passion for the sport of soccer in Miami.
It's our pleasure. Again, we have a lot of questions to get to, including some questions asked by our listeners, our readers, our audience. We're going to kind of frame this in kind of three areas. The first area being Lockhart Stadium. That's been the most recent point of discussion, obviously, for people in the world of South Florida soccer. We're then going to talk a little bit about Miami Freedom Park, which is the destination, the terminus destination for Inter Miami CF in Miami-Dade County. And then we're going to get to some questions about team operation and what's the direction of the team going forward as they do target a launch March of 2020. So let's go to our first area of discussion, which is Lockhart. Last week, your ownership group was awarded the rights to basically redevelop the area next to Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport. First off, if you could, would you please kind of walk us through how did you get from the beginnings of a search for your training facility and youth academy to settling on, to deciding to go with Lockhart Stadium?
That's first great question. And frankly, one of the things that was very alluring to my brother and I when we got involved with Inter Miami and this venture with MLS was the focus and concentration on youth soccer, and the component of an academy which is very different than other professional franchises. When you see that we're going to have at Inter Miami the opportunity to start training and developing young men at 12 years of age, from 12 and under all the way through 18 and under, it was something to us that was very alluring because it would allow us to develop homegrown talent. It would allow us to really focus on the roots of soccer in South Florida, in Miami-Dade and Broward County. So when we started looking at a location for our training facility and our academy, it was really driven by, where does youth soccer thrive? How can it be easiest for the youth players and their parents? And not necessarily for my first team or my first team players. So the location wasn't driven by our professionals, right? By our first teamers who are actually, they have mobility. So when our scouting staff and our technical director led by Paul McDonough and Kirk Schmidt and Jason Kreis and Javi Morales and their team has basically been scouring South Florida and dealing with the existing programs and existing academies, we tried to locate a facility that would be able to enable kids from West Kendall, northwestern Dade County, Weston, Central Broward, Boca, Palm Beach, where there is an extreme amount of talent in our youth. So when technical directors came to us and I asked them, what is the ideal location for a training academy? Frankly, they came up with a quadrant that went pretty much from North Miami-Dade County, I'd say 135th Street, give it, just a little bit south of Opa-locka Airport, all the way up to Commercial Boulevard, and pretty much on a quadrant towards the eastern portion of the counties because it facilitated traffic. One of the first sites, frankly, that we looked at was, we looked at Virginia Key, we looked at places in Kendall, we looked at Tropical, we looked at areas in Doral, Weston, the Lauderhill area, and frankly, then we started doing drive time calculations, right? What would it take a mother or father to take their young man to practice? So we did this very comprehensive study. And frankly, when we started looking at it and centering it, it did fit in that quadrant. One of the areas that we first looked at, frankly, was Amelia Earhart Park to try to build a facility there, which, number one, is to serve the youth, right? We wanted to build 11 or 12 fields 6 or 7 dedicated to our academy and our professional team, another 4 or 5 for the community. But frankly, Amelia Earhart's timeline didn't work. The laws of Metro-Dade County, any type of change of use, or not change of use, basically enhanced use of a park, takes a vote. It would take a referendum and a general election, which would delay us to a 2020 election, probably 2022 opening. That's 3 years from now. When we looked at, frankly, the Fort Lauderdale site and Lockhart and its location and the flexibility that it afforded us in order to build so we want to build a world-class facility. A facility not only for our youth and our training academy, but where we could hold, youth tournaments there, so kids don't have to go to Orlando and Disney World to go play. Where we could bring international tournaments. We'd frankly like to build a better facility than exists at IMG in the western coast of Florida. We have interest from national teams to do their off-season training here. We have, international teams that want to play here and run games and exhibitions. So the Lockhart facility met all of that criteria. And frankly, we were very, very frankly, surprised and pleased the cooperation of the city of Fort Lauderdale, that from beginning of the presentation of our proposal to approval took 50 days. So, I look at Fort Lauderdale as becoming, in the Lockhart site, a global centric facility. It is our goal that everything we do is with our youth in mind, our soccer fans in mind, and that this be MLS's, global team based in South Florida.
I think that's an interesting point you mentioned, the idea of creating kind of a hub for soccer for the Americas in Miami. I think that's what a lot of people, that's been the dream of soccer supporters in Miami for ad infinitum, forever. If you've cared about this sport here, trying to get to that point. Talking more about that site, and particularly now the use of it as a home, a temporary home, a 2-year home for the MLS side, an 18,000 seat venue with the idea of transitioning to USL. Do you feel that choice, bringing the team to Broward, you had mentioned with Will Manso last night on Channel 10, the idea of blurring the lines, eliminating the lines between Miami-Dade and Broward. That's a hell of a lift. That's a big goal to kind of strive for. Do you think that the potential harm in turning off South Miami fans, in particular South Dade fans, getting up there, is the juice worth the squeeze? Do you think the payoff will be greater for the team in the long term?
I think it's a win-win, and let me explain to you why. And I understand the concern of some of the residents of the southern portion of Miami-Dade, of us, locating temporarily, even our first 2 years, and in our academy up in Fort Lauderdale. But let me tell you how I think this is a win-win. We've always said this is the people's team. There are soccer fans in the Tri-County area. When you look at the population of South Florida, frankly, there's, I think between Broward and Palm Beach County, there's close to 3.5 million people. I think there's 2.8 million in Dade. We want them all to be our fans. If many will remember, very early on in my involvement of the team, and they would ask me about interim places, I even entertained the thought of taking the team around, playing a game at FAU, playing a game in Broward, playing a game in Dade, because I want to expose our team, right, to all of the fans of our community. When you look at the Lockhart site, the fact that it not only fits training and our youth academy and the multitude of fields we'll have there, but it fits a temporary stadium. Frankly, and let's talk about the search for a temporary site, because even if we were going to start, and to answer your question, the fact we'll have Miami Freedom Park here as our anchor, as our home, where we're going to play our home games, which will also be a global centric center for soccer, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. And having Lockhart is it's a best of both worlds. We'll be able, I think, to hurdle and touch points and all of the diversity that exists in our community, but more importantly, the passion for soccer. You said Fort Lauderdale has been the ancestral home of professional soccer in South Florida, which it has been. I remember watching the Strikers way back when with Nenek Uiaz and Gerd Muller, and watching Hudson and et cetera, and all of the great players that have come through here. So we want to pay tribute to that history as well. But when you look at the fact of an interim stadium site, and what did we do? We also did an exhaustive search, knowing that we would have to find an interim site to kick off in March 2020. The obvious places to look, right? Marlins Park, Hard Rock Stadium, FIU, which are existing facilities. Let's take those in order. Hard Rock Stadium, and we have a very, very good relationship with the team at Relevant there, and with Steve Ross and others. but the fact that they took the Miami Open made it very difficult. The Miami Open coincides with the opening of the MLS season. And then it's not only the Miami Open, it's the dismantling of the facilities, which I think will take 4 to 6 weeks. So it would basically make Hard Rock Stadium unavailable until probably mid to late April. So therefore, we would have to then maybe play in 2 sites, right? It's a little bit easier during the summertime to play in Hard Rock, but then you have scheduling conflicts with the Dolphins and with the University of Miami in the fall. So it was difficult to make that work. And I want to get into sponsors after, because I think that's a difficulty that would exist in any stadium. But I want to talk about sponsors and the tremendous outreach that this team has had from global sponsors. When we looked at Marlins Park, I went to extensive discussions with Marlins Park, and either many on its face would say, listen, it's very hard to fit a soccer stadium in a baseball field. True. We went to Yankee Stadium, looked at the NYFC experience, etc. And although I'm a fan of the Marlins Stadium itself, I think it's a beautiful facility, it was going to be very difficult to fit. It would, I think, not be the best of fan experiences for us. And frankly, again, when you looked at some of the scheduling with Major League Baseball, which coincides in the season, difficult, not impossible, but difficult. But again, it went into how could we enhance the fan experience that we want to do, and it was difficult at Marlins Park. At FIU, frankly, when you look at it, the turf is a big issue there. I know there's a reluctance from FIU to switch to turf. We really never considered FIU for our first team for the interim seasons, turf being a deal breaker. The type of players we're bringing here will not play on that turf, and we'll get into that discussion later about composition of team roster. So we looked at months ago the possibility of building our own stadium. We looked at it, and frankly we got together with a French firm that has built modular, not mobile stadium, modular. Modular, all it means is it's prefabricated steel off-site. So when we looked at the composition of an 18,000 seat stadium, chairbacks on the east and west, canopied for sun and rain protection, open areas for our supporters, behind both goals. We started seeing we can create our own fan experience. We can create a loud, raucous atmosphere. We can control the fan experience from entry to exit, because I think it's very important, the experience being there. I want it to be very genuinely South Florida, that experience. And it's going to be a very nice facility for an interim facility. So when we saw that possibility and the fact that we could create that at Lockhart in a short time period, we were frankly very enthusiastic with that, because say we can control the experience. We don't have to fit our experience to an existing facility. And frankly, another side which is very important is the outreach that we've had from sponsors, local, national, and global. And I don't use this term often, has been blow your mind. We've been approached by sponsors in every single major category all around the world who want to be part of our team, who want to be part of this great vision that we're establishing that is Inter Miami. Obviously the David Beckham factor is very important here, because he's a global icon. I think he brings elements here to our city that are important and we can exploit. But the sponsorship experience also allows us full control at a stadium of our building, right? The relationship, the naming opportunities, the type of experiences that our sponsors want to create for their fans. So when you saw this and we looked at the interim site, although my first preference was to be able to do it in Miami-Dade County, that was also impossible. And an anecdote that I've said before, but I want to share with the residents of Miami, we looked at Tropical Park very hard, where there is an existing stadium there now. And we offered to build an 18,000 seat stadium at Tropical for our interim seasons. Frankly, after our 2 interim seasons, leave it for Miami-Dade County for their use. But again, based on the laws of Miami-Dade County, although how frustrating or illogical it may be, the fact that it would exceed 2,999 seats would force that also to a referendum in 2020, meaning therefore that wouldn't happen until 2021 or 2022. So it didn't meet our timeline. So, somewhat frustrating, but we have been since day one, trying to make proactive offers and bring to our community, investment in dollars. But I think that the Lockhart site for our first 2 seasons, for the reasons that I just alluded to, are going to be fantastic. It'll be a great experience. Majority of games are Saturday night, so I think it'll be very accessible. There's a rail station a block and a half from the Lockhart site, 45 minutes from the MIC here in Miami. Access north and south on I-95 when there's less traffic on a Saturday evening. So I'm looking forward that all of our fans, all of our residents will be able to participate at our stadium at the Lockhart site. I think there's an extreme amount of excitement for our team. And so, I think it'll be the best of both worlds and fit the first 2 years for our team, I think, in a fantastic fashion.
I have two more questions about Lockhart. One is one that's come in often from fans who are wondering. You said to the commission last week that the USL team in Fort Lauderdale, would have the identity of
Fort Lauderdale.
Have you explored acquiring the Strikers brand? Do you foresee that being something separate from the Strikers brand?
We've been in conversations with those involved with the Strikers brand. As I've said before, we want to be very respectful of the history and allude to the history. I think you'll find an element of the history of all of the soccer teams there. On our side, we're going to do we have some very cool ideas on a quasi-history museum for soccer in South Florida. Those discussions are ongoing. Our USL team will be a Fort Lauderdale USL team. Moving forward, as soon as we get our USL team up, they will be playing at that stadium. So, I'm going to think that's going to be an important element. I would anticipate that even potentially after our Miami Freedom Park move, that we may play some Open Cup games there. That we'll bring some exhibition games there. So we want the Lockhart Stadium site to be active even post our 2 years of interim there. So I'm very excited with the potential and the possibilities there.
Great. And one quick question about, we were talking about transportation and getting there. Obviously the trains go there. Do you foresee, have you guys looked at all helping to transport fans there?
Absolutely.
Having a place where you park and ride up there with the team? Or?
Absolutely. We're going to be probably doing something very innovative with all of our supporters groups leaving either from the MIC or from Miami Freedom Park site at Melreese to do a caravan up to the games. But let me allude to something that's important as well. Our partners and part of the ownership group are the owners of Uber. They're also the owners of Brown. So I think that you're going to see part of our ticket package potentially include Uber rides up to the stadium, include either discounted or free fares on the Bright Line train up with transportation from the Bright Line station to the stadium. So we're going to make transportation as accessible and as easy as possible because we want it to be seamless. We want the experience of going to an Inter Miami game to start at your home, to try to make it, again, easy, seamless, so you start thinking about the team and the game that you're able to enjoy. We're very much looking forward to activating the plaza that'll be in front of the stadium to be very fun, right? So that you can get there an hour or two before the game and be able to enjoy with your family. So all of those elements of getting there in traffic, we want to make as easy as possible.
Excellent. There are one or two other Broward questions I want to ask and then bring it back down to date. The first is there's kind of a discrepancy between what was mentioned in the official proposal to the city and some of the comments from Paul McDonough about what level at which the USL team will be competing in Fort Lauderdale. Are you looking at USL Championship or USL 1 for your USL entry?
We're looking at a USL 1
okay.
For our facility in Broward and our team, and we've been in discussions with the USL for almost a year now.
Great. So that was the first thing I kind of wanted to pin down. The second thing I did want to ask about is, as our audience knows, we are Miami-centric, but if you are a soccer fan in South Florida, you have been to Broward for many a game because, as we mentioned, that's the home of where soccer has generally been. And there has been some concern on the part of some Broward soccer fans that a USL 1 entry located at Lockhart Stadium as a reserve side may not be the kind of soccer experience they're hoping for long term. 2 years of Major League Soccer certainly delivers what they would want to see.
Yes.
I think they're concerned about the after effects. So I do want to ask on kind of their behalf, because I know in particular the Reese brothers, who are very influential at Flight 19, which is a big supporters group up there. What would you say to them about, again, your effort and what you have mentioned, the idea of connecting the counties? Once the Major League Soccer team comes to Miami, how do you foresee that USL side being pushed by Inter Miami CF from Miami?
Well, number one, it'll be pushed. Listen, and I know Paul McDonough made a comment. If there is the opportunity for a successful USL Championship side, we'd obviously consider that. But we are committed now to a USL League One team. We're obviously going to push that very hard. As I said before, and I think to answer to the Broward soccer fan, everything we want to do, we want to excel and we want to be successful at. We want to have great teams, great quality players, and we want to be really a pool of talent that not only feeds our Inter Miami team, but that we become one of the best, development and training teams in the world. Frankly, that's what our aspirations are global. So with that said, I've also talked about how do we continue activating, after the MLS team doesn't play the regular season games there. Our MLS team will play exhibition games there. We will play Open Cup games there. We will activate it with teams that we know want to come, not from here, that aren't necessarily going to be playing at a stadium like the one that we want to create at Miami Freedom Park. So it will be a very active soccer-centric center, and I think you'll see Inter Miami at the center of all of that. So my question to the fans is, listen, we will be there. Listen, it's the home of our players. It's our training. I think you're going to see very innovating things in our training academy. I think you're going to see an ultra high performance center there, which is going to be state of the art. We're working with some partners now to do something extremely innovative. I think you're going to see potentially some liaison and some work very closely with U.S. Soccer. I think you're going to see us very closely aligned to CONCACAF. I happened to have dinner with Gianni Infantino from FIFA a week and a half ago now, and I think you'll see some innovative things with us here. The amount of attention that we're receiving is uncommon for a typical MLS team. And we're going to take advantage of that for the benefit of our fans. So, this is going to be ongoing. Listen, I invite dialogue with all fans, supporters groups. All of our supporters groups have been here at this table we're sitting now. I want them to be proactive. Frankly, our supporters are helping design their seats and their section, not only in Fort Lauderdale, but frankly at Miami Freedom Park. There's not a session with our architects where our fans aren't involved. It's about them. How fast can you get in? How comfortable is it? How loud is it going to be? This is all about the fans. I want these stadiums to be designed for our fans, after our fans, and the team be an enjoyable experience. This isn't ownership with some predisposed idea and this is what we're going to do and dictate it to the fans. I don't think that works, right? I want it to be organic. I want it to come from the people, right? And how fun can that be, right? Our supporters section, at least the preliminary section I see in Miami Freedom Park, super steep rake, very cool, 3 capo stands. It's taking form. In Fort Lauderdale as well. We asked them, you want chairs? You want chairbacks? No, we want to be standing. We want this. This is what we want. So we're designing it, because we're in the process of designing this very quickly now. But we want our fans involved. So my message to those Broward fans is, listen, reach out. We'll talk to you. Be part of the process of building this team. We want you to be part of building this team.
Okay. So let's now bring the discussion back to Dade County. After all, that is what we focus on here at Magic City Soccer. And obviously the last year has been, I can imagine most of your time has been consumed talking about Miami Freedom Park. Again, bringing it back to Dade County, this has been, this part of it, again, every part of this has been a little bit longer than everyone anticipated. Yes. And so now you are at the negotiation stage after winning the referendum in November. Can you provide us and our viewers some insight onto how that negotiation is going?
Absolutely. And listen, I'd be remiss without saying to thank the overwhelming number of City of Miami residents that went out and voted in November in favor of a referendum for authorization to negotiate, but more importantly, to bring this dream and this vision to reality that we call Miami Freedom Park. So I want to thank them. It wasn't only over 61% of the voters, it was 62,000 votes. I mean, it was an amazing, I think, mandate for us to, listen, get this done. So I feel a tremendous responsibility to the voters and to our fans, because we have obviously support outside of the limits of the city of Miami as well in order to get this done. And it's very humbling to be a steward of this project, because that's what we are. We're stewards for the people's team. Let me go back a little bit on the Melrose site and how we chose it and why I think it's so compelling. Because I want your listeners and your viewers to hear from me, to not get it through third news sources and rumors and what people say and the misinformation that exists out there. When we started looking at the potential of a Melrose site, it was always done with the narrative of, number one, creating Miami's largest park, of being able to take what is now a closed, frankly, you can call it public, but private golf course. You can only get on it if you pay, which is closed to the majority of the city of Miami residents, and opening and activating it so people can go with their families and enjoy what should be a great park experience. When you look at the type of stadium that we want to build there, and you mentioned before we're going to be building a 25 to 26,000 seat soccer specific stadium that's going to be state of the art, and I guarantee you it'll be the best soccer experience in the United States of America. With the type of technology that we're looking at, the type of fan experience, it's going to be almost, you're going to be assisting to a museum of soccer, what we're going to do. But when I started doing, frankly, and visiting other sites around the country, and I've been to Kansas City, Portland, Seattle, Los Angeles, to places that have very special game experiences, it's important to surround that stadium with something which lives, with something which gives your family something, but also something that is an economic engine and driver for our city. Because our city needs jobs. Our city needs a place where your family can go and experience something great that is a sport of soccer. I frankly do not believe, I've always said, and I've been criticized nationally for it, that stadiums aren't economic engines on their own. They're not. And other owners and other teams say, oh my God, Jorge Mas, how can you say that? Well, I say it because it's factually correct. I go to games at Marlins Park, I go home. I go to a Heat game, great in-arena experience, I go home. When I go to Hard Rock, I go home. So there's nothing for me to keep me on the site or surrounding site other than the in-game experience. So when I looked at this site and we looked at, I think, this beautiful design that Arquitectonica came up with, which would have, great F&B, retail experience, the stadium, hotel component there, and more importantly, a technology hub. And in addition, 23 acres of soccer fields for our youth academies, for our kids, for adult leagues, for people who are going to go up there because we have a huge need in our city and county for fields. But what really drove me to that site is when you look at our ownership group, and it's David Beckham, a global icon, everything he brings from the soccer world. But what I have as partners Marcelo Claure, who started a very successful company here called Brightstar, sold it to SoftBank, is the CEO and chairman of Sprint, today is the chief operating officer of SoftBank, and Masayoshi Son, who is the chairman and developer of SoftBank, who today is the largest tech investor in the world, period, hands down. So these are owners of mine in this venture who are leading edge in technology and artificial intelligence. They own Uber, WeWork, some of the coolest entities in the world. The largest technology fund in the history of mankind called the Vision Fund. It's a $100 billion fund. So my goal was, how do I get these uber successful individuals invested in our city? So when you looked at what we're trying to develop at Miami Freedom Park is a technology hub. A technology hub that can be the home of the creative minds of young men and women in South Florida, so we don't have a brain drain and people who have to leave in order to pursue a career, that actually can lure dollars here, that can generate high-paying jobs, that can establish an ecosystem of technology, being the gateway to the Americas for Latin America, and really be able to create a technology community and centralize it in South Florida. And when I started looking at the project, my first promise to the residents of the city of Miami was this would be zero taxpayer dollars. We are going to privately fund the building of the stadium from soup to nuts and of this whole development. And when you look at the fiscal benefits, when you look at the fact that it's going to generate $44 million in annual tax revenue, split between the city, the county, the state, and the school board, probably about in excess of $11 or $12 million is going to go directly to the city of Miami. Again, I repeat, with zero investment. That's a financial windfall. When you look at it's going to create 11 to 12,000 jobs during the construction period. It's going to develop 3,200 permanent high-paying jobs. When it's going to be one of the first projects in the country guaranteeing a living wage. When it's going to provide an open access air park. It's going to provide 23 acres of youth soccer fields and soccer facilities for our community. Based on its proximity to the airport that has 50 million visitors a year, it's going to be able, I think, to generate obviously a very parallel experience to those people, which will enhance it in our city. So when you look at all of these benefits, and the fact is we're going to be paying fair market value for the land, they're not giving us anything, we're paying for the land, and we're paying property taxes, This is the only stadium in the United States of America that I'm familiar with, and trust me, I've looked, that does both. Some do one or the other, but not both. So I think when you look at everything that this project can deliver, it's a win-win. Obviously, there has been some, we got a 3-2 vote, took it to the referendum. I am extremely confident that as we look forward, and all of these things that I promised on the dais of the City of Miami in July will be in our lease. So, we look forward to sitting down and negotiating with the City of Miami and their consultants to bring this lease to fruition as quickly as possible, to show the people of the City of Miami we will deliver on our promises. But more importantly, the eyes of the world are on us, to show them that the potential at the City of Miami, that we can get this done, that we can make a transformative project, possible. And so, that's our vision, and that's the status of Miami Freedom Park now.
Great. Jorge, going back a little bit to just before you found Mel Reese.
Yes.
A couple people have been curious about the Overtown site. What's happening with that property? If you see it, we know that you said that there is no plan B. Mel Reese is
Right.
the plan. There's obviously still questions about remediation, which I'm sure you've
Yes.
been looking at. So could you talk
Let
to
me
us a
address
little bit
both of
about
those.
that and about
Absolutely.
Overtown as a plan B or what you're doing with the
100%. And let's talk about Overtown a little bit. When I got involved with the ownership group, maybe a little bit over a year ago now, a little bit more than that, I always looked at that site that it's not the best site for a soccer-specific MLS stadium. I grew up in this community. I have a significant amount of people whom, I have the pleasure of having as team members here at Mastech whom live in that community, and I think it would be detrimental to that community. The status of the Overtown site, frankly, is our ownership group owns 7.5 acres there. The parcel necessary to build a stadium is 10 acres. There's another 3 acres, give or take, that we have an agreement to purchase from Miami-Dade County. That's currently in litigation. There's a Matheson lawsuit trying to prohibit us from doing that. He's appealing it. I think we'll eventually, obviously, win the lawsuit. And hopefully we'll be able to complete the purchase of the 10 acres, but I don't see a soccer stadium going there. I think it's bad for the neighborhood. I think it gentrifies the area. I think it's not a good fan experience. I think there's so many negatives that I've said publicly 1,000 times, our stadium is not going to go there. What I do want to see Overtown become is, can we as an ownership group there help and participate something that's going to spur economic activity and is great for that neighborhood, right? So we're in discussion with a multitude of groups, I think, that share a vision for what I think that site could be ultimately best used for. Frankly, if people tell me, well, the Overtown site, I don't want to speculate. If I had to have a stadium done, because I had a gun to my head in February, I had to put a stadium there. Could it go there? Hypothetically, yes, but it's not in my plans. So I want to say that unequivocally. For me, Overtown is not an option. I don't want it to be an option. Our only option is Miami Freedom Park, because we are going to deliver it for the voters. Few times in the history of this country, this is the best stadium development deal in the history of the United States, period. That's been said to us by up-team people in other communities. And let me give you a very vivid example of that. As you're all familiar with, there are 3 other MLS franchises that are working on doing the same thing that we are. And they frankly have copied our concept. Columbus, Ohio, where the Columbus Crew plays now, they're going to be moving to Austin, and the team is remaining. But they're going to be constructing a new stadium and a new development and facility very similar to ours in Columbus, Ohio. Nashville, Tennessee is a new expansion team. They're also building a facility that looks very similar to ours in the Nashville Fairgrounds. And you look at Austin, Texas, the Precourt family is building a new team there. Again, very similar to our concept stadium, F&B, hotel, the same concepts. All of those 3 proposals and projects have significant public dollars. All of those cities or counties or state have all contributed to those projects, and they're all ready to go, by the way. So, here there's no contribution from the cities. And none of those had, 61% mandates to get it done. So I'm very confident about Miami Freedom Park. I talked to you about the Overtown facility and where we're at. We want to be proactive with that site. I don't think it works. I think that the thinking very early on was, listen, an urban core site that can deliver to millennials. I think when you look at Mel Reese site, where Miami Freedom Park will be located, that is in the center of our city. It is the end and start point of all of our, mass transit. It's surrounded on 3 sides by major highway corridors, only residential on one side, which we will protect. So I think it's an ideal site for our vision and what we want to do.
And the remediation, have you?
Oh, yes, let me talk about
Can
the
you tell us about
remediation
that?
of Miami Freedom Park. I apologize for not
No,
addressing
no
it
worries.
earlier.
It's a lot of questions.
Yeah, just post obviously the referendum when we got the go-ahead. We started organizing for phase 1 and phase 2 environmental studies. Again, it was somewhat difficult getting that off the ground with the city over the first few months, but I'd say probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago, we started both phase 1 and phase 2 studies. We should be completed, that is doing boring wells and doing test digs for geotechnical sites there. That should be completed, I think, in the next couple of weeks. It's moving along nicely. We should have results that we could actually have some measurables on probably 6 weeks from them. So I anticipate April, some type in late May or early June, we should have some results. I have a lot of thoughts from our environmental consultants on what it will take or not. Again, they're not they're based on some scientific data, but not sites. I don't foresee the remediation issue being one that is going to be an obstacle we're not going to be able to surmount. But we will have much more specific information in the late May, June timeframe.
Okay. Question that I had about the political reality
Yes.
of Miami Freedom Park. We've talked about some of the logistical realities of it, but I was in the same city commission meetings you were in last summer, watching you and your team talk about what you had in mind, and I also got to see, as you got to see, the reaction from the 5 commissioners
Yes.
who have the vote. Ultimately, as you mentioned to us before we started recording, you have a constituency of 5. You gotta figure
Yes.
out to get their votes, and you got to get 4. For the referendum, it was 3.
Yes.
And the 3 was pulling teeth.
Yes.
4 is an even higher hill to climb. Obviously, we're talking about math here. We can do 4 is more
Yes.
than 3. Editorializing for a second, I don't see Manolo Reyes as being the easiest bottle to pull off the shelf. It would appear that you need to hold your 3 votes and then reach out to Commissioner Gort, who represents the Grapeland district,
Yes.
and convince him that it's a good vote for his district as well.
Yes.
Those, you have the negotiation aspect of it, but you also have the political reality of it. What is your message? Acting as though you're the politician, you're reaching out to them, communicating to them. What were you presenting to all 5 commissioners to try to get them on board with your
Right.
vision?
By the way, your editorial read is accurate. Listen, and one thing, and I learned this from my late father, you'll always know what I'm thinking. I always say what I'm thinking, and I always do what I say I'm going to do. I want to reassure those commissioners, and Commissioner Reyes and Commissioner Gort had their doubts and were their no's. I think, really frankly, because they look at the existing relationship that exists there with the DeLuca family and the Mel Reese Golf Course, and I respect that, and they're bound to friendship with them, and I understand that. But my message to them, and obviously in the most positive fashion and ways, and I have tremendous, they're our elected officials. I respect them both very much. Commissioner Gort requested of me to reach out to the community, to reach out to his neighbors, to reach out to the people whom he, frankly, correctly says will be mostly affected, either positively or negatively in their viewpoint by this development. We've been doing so. Maybe not in the most visible, loudest manner to make news, but we have been doing that. I'd like to say that in District 1, there was a second highest district of yes votes for this. The surrounding neighborhoods around it voted resoundingly yes. In the course of the last 4 months, we have run 7 focus groups in that neighborhood. And I don't say this lightly when I say if we took the vote again, we'd get probably closer to 80 to 85% of yes. But obviously, Commissioner Gort needs to know this. So we have quietly been doing this because I want to take care of the needs of the neighbors. I want to assure them that there will be no traffic issues. So frankly, the traffic study that we've been doing has actually been almost focused more on their neighborhood than it has on the park. So when you see our release of our traffic study, hopefully in a week or 2, it will really address the neighborhood as it is today. Because they have a traffic issue today. Forget Miami Freedom Park, I think alleviates it because I think there's 2.5 miles of queuing and egress. I've learned all these terms of traffic, but I'm really focusing on the neighborhood. I want the neighborhood to be engaged in designing their park. I want the neighborhood to understand what type of amenities they'll have there and what they would like to see. We will be having our first community meeting tomorrow night. I think you will see in the course of the next 4 to 6 weeks an extremely highly visible outreach from our team to the community and to the neighborhood in every aspect of the way. So when Commissioner Gord is presented we have to have a completed lease to show the commission that he will have hopefully heard from his residents, that we have delivered on his request of us, that we have talked to his neighbors, that we have hopefully shown him that his district has overwhelming support for this, and that any concerns he may have we can allay or we can address. My message to Commissioner Reyes is we will be doing the same things in District 4. We are reaching out to the community and to the neighbors there. I believe there was 13,000 people in District 4 who voted yes for this vision and yes for Miami Freedom Park. So we'll be engaging that. I'm hoping that Commissioner Reyes can also weigh the benefits to his community and also what his voters wanted. Frankly, I may be naive, but I'm very confident, hopefully, at the end of a 5-0 vote, because I think this is so compelling for our community. But I will be reaching out to the commissioners. We'll be very proactive in doing that. I understand the realities of politics, and I understand what's going on, but I believe in the power of the voter and the power of democracy more than I do in just an individual's opinion. So, we're going to put our best foot forward. We're going to engage the communities. I want there to be a groundswell of support for this project and frankly, for bringing our team here and all the benefits that it brings. So I think, we've been waiting, frankly, to get kicked off with the negotiations to be more visible in public and what we've been doing. But rest assured, over the last 3-4 months, we've been working very, very hard with the communities and the stakeholders.
I want to ask one more Miami Freedom Park question, and it does kind of also circle back around to the Overtown site as well, because I think that the question I'm going to ask there, it's kind of connected. So you have in your mind a vision. You again, with Wilma and Soya last night, you mentioned 30 to 45 days you'd like to put this in front of the commission. So that means you're going to have an idea of whether this is actually going to come to fruition in 2 months.
Yes.
So we don't have to talk about in 5 years, in 10 years, in 3 months.
We will know.
There's a vote.
Yes.
And if the vote comes yes, obviously the backhoes start digging and whatever. I'm not involved in building, so whatever instruments are used to build this are going to be heading into Melreese. If it's a yes, there's still that lot in Overtown, and as you mentioned, you have an idea for what it's for. Would it be fair to say that if that land isn't going to be used for a team purpose, stadium or otherwise, that there are some concerns that maybe that land should be relinquished or returned or in consult with the city put to a different use? And if the vote is a no, you said Overtown's not even in your mind, but it's a possibility. Would that be the next step, or do you have, if Overtown is step Z, is there something between step A and step Z?
Okay. If it's let's go with the bottom line, right? So if it's a no for Miami Freedom Park at the city of Miami, for some reason tomorrow, all 5 commissioners said, no, we don't want it for whatever reason, right? And that door closed completely. Again, I think that will never happen.
Sure.
I am super confident, and I think that is logic, right? For some reason, right, we had to start building a stadium tomorrow. I only have one site, which would be the Overtown site. There is not a site. There really isn't. I mean, even if we wanted, let's say that we wanted to go to a tropical park, for example, that's a 2020 referendum. So if I only have one site, to a buildable site, that's a reality, right? And we have to, fix a lawsuit and do those things,
sure.
which that hopefully will end very soon. But that's a reality.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, that answers your question.
Okay.
Other than that, I think we're moving from Miami. If Miami Freedom Park said yes, what happens to Overtown, right? That's obviously a conversation we'll sit down with the county at the time.
Yes, I'm sorry,
it's a county. We'll sit with the county and we'll figure it out, and we'll try to do. There is, frankly, I came up with a novel idea. I don't think it's novel. I think it's pretty logical. Of how we help remake, that area, because I listened to the residents there. I know that there's a request for proposal out for redevelopment of Culmer Gardens, to do something very nice for the neighborhood there, of which obviously our parcel is dead center. And I think there's something innovative there that we can do, and I'd like to be part of that, and that's going to be ongoing. That will happen. I think it's up for an RFP, I think, actually this week. So, we want to be a proactive partner in everything that we do here. So, if the stadium doesn't go there, I'd like to see that site go for the best use possible for the neighborhood.
Okay.
What that is today, I don't know.
Okay, interesting. Thank you very much. I know we kind of circled back around
Yes.
on that, but that was illuminating. Let's move on now to the kind of the third portion here, which I think a lot of fans,
Yes.
Political-minded people.
The fun stuff.
Yes, let's get to the fun stuff. Yeah, amen. So, let's talk about team calendars.
Yes.
You've got 11 months.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
To build a stadium.
Yes, sir.
Hire a coach.
Yes, sir.
Put a team together, and get a field. How?
Let's talk
how's
about
that
that.
going?
Let's talk about that. Getting a stadium, I said before, listen, if we're able to break ground in Fort Lauderdale in July, we'll have a stadium built by February. Frankly, we've had conversations with the city today, Monday, and today's Monday.
Yeah,
Today's Monday. We're already trying to work on interim permits. As fast as we can get there, we'll get that done. So from a facilities point of view, obviously with a facility, we should be done. Building a team. Our scouts have been looking at, if our team headquarters is three floors under us here. If you look at the walls, they're full of prospective rosters. I think our fans will be extremely happy with the type of makeup of players we're looking. I can anticipate that our fans, that you'll see a type of Atlanta United model. Our general manager is Paul McDonough, who helped build the Atlanta team. I think you'll see a mix of young talent, of uber talent, young talent, mixed with some guys who are very established veterans and superstars. And I don't mean veterans, old guys. The MLS it's not going to be a league anymore where guys come here to retire. I think you'll see guys who are in their primes, who are world-class players. Combined with youth, our scouts have been in Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico in the last 4 months. So we have a prospective list. I think you look at the 3 designated players that we have ability in the MLS to not be capped by salary. Each designated player we choose changes the next one. Because if we pick striker X, and then our man on the wing is a different than the option is if we go with the X, or we go with our number 10, or we go with our midfielder. So to see down there the combination, these are all players you all know, right? These are all, and this is frankly because the outreach to David Beckham has been overwhelming. And some of them have been very outspoken, like Antoine Griezmann and others who want to come
we
here.
We literally have a comment from Alex Mindley on our live chat. Griezmann.
Yeah, it's you will see an extremely, very exciting team here. We have a very aggressive style. We'll start building our rosters in the fall. The MLS draft will be December, January. We fill in caps. We have different scenarios. We'll be very active, after the signing period. I think you'll see some announcement of some European players will come here, and some South American players who we'll be getting. I anticipate announcing our coach in the October timeframe. We frankly have 2 finalists, which I've interviewed extensively. I'm very excited about the possibilities of both.
If you care to
coming
mention
here,
them, we wouldn't mind.
They're national, international,
they're very high-profile coaches, and everybody will know who they are. And I think for me, it's about fit. I think leadership matters. So we need a manager here who can lead men, who can take that mix of veteran leadership and young talent and be able to manage it. I need someone who's been ultra successful on the international stage. They have been. Someone who can start changing the model of how we play MLS, football, and soccer. So I think it'll be very exciting. But I think you'll see all that coming together in the fall. We'll be having very exciting announcements for our academy in May. We're going to be sending out invitations to those young men who will be finalists to be our first members of our academy. So I think you're going to be seeing a tremendous launch there. Our scouts tell us there's a lot of talent in South Florida that won't have to leave. And also we're going to be developing a training system. That's important. I think that you should no longer be seeing Portuguese teams as a springboard for Latin American talent to then either go to bigger European teams or go to the Premier League or La Liga or Serie A or the Bundesliga. I think you'll start seeing Miami be that springboard. We're entering some I'll say relationships loosely. You can call them affiliations or other with some major teams that have, I think, extreme young talent that we will be having the correct arrangements with so that we can develop that talent here in Miami. So I think from a fan perspective, which is finally what I want to get starting to talk about, you're going to see a super, super good team that I think will be, competing for an MLS Cup, right from the bat.
I think that's what people in Miami would be interested in
Absolutely.
seeing is a competitor right from the start.
Yeah, I have one quick question about your technical team.
Yes.
Sorry, Jason Kreis.
Yes.
Is he going to be splitting his time between U.S. Soccer and Inter? Can you tell us about?
He is. They poached one of our coaches. He's going to be coaching the United States Olympic team, the Tokyo Olympics, so U23 team. Jason is a tremendous talent who is here. He will be splitting his time between Inter Miami and his responsibilities as the coach of the United States Olympic team.
And I guess that's you guys are fine with that because
yes,
the benefits outweigh whatever detriment.
First, it's a tremendous opportunity for Jason. Second, it's a tremendous opportunity for us as a team to have our coach coaching the Olympic team. The scouting benefits and the relationship with U.S. Soccer that we intend to have are extensive, and and Jason's downstairs now looking at film, frankly, of players. So Jason will be splitting his time, and we're very, very happy for Jason to being named the U.S. Olympic coach. And I think it speaks well of what we've hired at Inter Miami so far, right? Really early on.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I did want to ask, because this is a question that came up through our Twitter account, actually. And honestly, I want to credit the person asking because I thought it was a really good one to mention.
Yes.
In terms of your outreach to fans.
Yes.
And in particular, social media use.
Yes.
The social media accounts of Inter Miami have been pretty well focused on advancing the message of building Miami Freedom Park, renovating Lockhart, the certain points to hit on that then really get hit on. But in terms of PJ Harris, by the way, that's who asked
Yes.
that. I made a mental note to ask it because I really liked it. How do you, and I know a big part of that is through the supporters groups, how do you plan as a club to kind of boost your voice in terms of connecting to individual fans through social media?
Let's talk about that. You will see a social media, is revamped the right word? If you go downstairs, there's a huge board about our new social media channels and what they will look like. And it will have extreme outreach directly to our fans. It will be very differently focused on what you've seen in the last since our beginning, which has been very centric to our ability to find places to play and
Right.
places to build. It's going to change. I think you'll see that rolled out very soon. And frankly, because of the need we're going to need to roll out, we need to sell tickets. We need to get our membership going.
Well, that was,
Yes,
we've had
yes.
several questions about when do they have merchandise, we want to buy stuff, we want to buy season tickets.
So do we.
all that.
Frankly, with Adidas, we're being treated differently than all the MLS teams. The typical relationships that exist with MLS teams through Adidas, even MLS relationships, are different with us. There's extreme demand for our product, and we're doing it the right way. So even from the design of our jerseys, of our leisure wear, of these ultra cool pink hoodies that they're coming up with, they're all going to be rolled out, right? Everything takes too long for my liking. I'd love to have had we're going to be building pop-up stores, by the way. There will be team stores located throughout Dade and Broward County very soon. You'll see that rolled out quickly. But our outreach to fans will be very different than the experience you've seen now in every aspect. And I think that will there's going to be a huge, you'll be able to be a member of Inter Miami, and there'll be extreme benefits with that. When you sign up for tickets, to be first in line, not only for our Ernham site, but for our stadium, Miami Freedom Park. We're going to be rolling out the design of the new stadium very soon. I think it is going to blow people's minds. I think when you look at the design of it, it is extremely unique. Those that have seen it from the architectural community, frankly, think it's world class. I think it's an ultra cool design. So my answer to him is, listen, you're right on the money. You'll see very, very big changes in the next 2 months. For us, we're going to be super active. And I think from a social media point of view, it will be a very different interaction with our fans. We've been very focused on interaction through our supporters groups to now, because frankly, they're like here almost, right?
Right.
But we're going to be going directly to the fans soon, and I think you'll love the changes that are coming.
So I do want to talk about time frame, as you mentioned. Next 2 months, it sounds like you've got about 15 different things coming down the pike between release of renderings and permitting issues with Fort Lauderdale on top of social media, on top of this and that. Going into the fall, as you mentioned, when the questions of the team will really come to the forefront.
Yes.
Coach will be hired.
Yes.
Quick question before I get to my larger question. Would you anticipate the first player signing would come after?
No.
No.
You'll see the first player signing right after the window.
Right after the transfer window
Yes.
opens?
Yes.
So we're looking in June?
Yes.
Okay.
In the summer.
That's good to know.
In
That's
the
good to
summer.
know. So make a pin of that. The larger question I wanted to ask is there's now something that actually Abel mentioned. If you don't mind, I'm gonna kind of
Sure. Yeah. No, go ahead.
the training venue
Yeah.
site. You want to build a training venue at Lockhart for 2020. You want the team to kick off
Yes.
in 2020.
Yes.
What's going to happen in the winter of this year?
We will have to start our training probably somewhere else. With different pitches. It'll be close, but let's say we're planning on starting like our actual training practices and things especially for our youth academy teams on different fields. Obviously, we're not gonna have fields done in August at Lockhart. It's not gonna
Sure.
happen. We're gonna probably start our youth academies in August. So I know that Paul and our team is looking at using fields, and I think they found some locations. And I think it's in the southern central Broward area. They've told me that has really nice pitches and fields, so we'll probably start there. We're gonna start somewhere other than Lockhart.
Sure. Okay.
And maybe it's where some existing academy teams are now. We have a great relationship with the youth academy teams here. So that's been very, very proactive, very good with Weston, West Kendall, with the group from Boca. So listen, we're here to help them. Not many MLS teams are seen as a threat to these academies. We want to be the opposite.
Sure.
Right.
Abel, do you have anything else?
Sure. I have one more question that's sort of out of category,
Yes.
and I sort of put it together from questions that people have put to me.
Right.
How do you guys plan to invest in soccer infrastructure outside of Melreese?
Awesome.
And on top of that, do you foresee doing soccer clinics here outside of Miami, outside of South Florida? How do you see that education?
My answer is yes to both. We are going to be, we're going to have a very proactive program with the U.S. Soccer Foundation, and we're going to be building a lot of mini pitches, especially more in the urban core of Miami. You will see making us investments in additional soccer fields in different areas of our community, specifically some in the Homestead and West Kendall area. We are going to invest in soccer infrastructure here for the benefit of our youth, and frankly, it's because we want people to be part of our team more than just buying a ticket or a uniform. We want to invest in the youth in our community. It's not only going to be the investment in our training center or the investment we're going to make in Miami Freedom Park. You'll see us very proactively doing that. We also want to do, you're going to see us, you're going to get sick of our coaches clinics. In our coaches clinics, not only for players, our coaches clinics for coaches. It's important that we develop coaching. And I'll use this as an example. You look at high school football here. We're probably top 3 areas in the United States of America with talent, football talent here. If you only recruited out of Dade and Broward County, you'd probably have a national championship team every year, right?
The Schnellenberger theory.
It's no doubt.
The state of Miami.
But how do we give those young men an option that it's not only football, that it's also soccer? But you need to start that at a very young age. But it starts with coaching, right? There's phenomenal football coaches here, right? I'm a graduate of Columbus High School. We have a great football program. I help, I support. But how do we develop soccer? So it has to go with coaches. If you don't get the right mentorship or coaching when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, it's more difficult, right? Your spatial ability, the ability to actually handle the ball, because no matter how talented you are, it's hard to start when you're 16 or 17. So if you start very young, so we're going to be doing coaches. We're going to be supporting youth programs that are soccer-centric. We're going to do player clinics. You will see our team super active everywhere. Here, we're gonna basically focus, Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. I'd like to do some things in the Naples-Fort Myers area, frankly, because that's also our region and our territory. You'll see us doing outreach there. That'll come. We'll get there. But you're going to see us proactive in youth soccer, coaches, clinics. We'll be everywhere. You will see Inter Miami everywhere. We have a concept where we're going to have You know, during the referendum campaign, we had like these food trucks going everywhere, right? Which is a super hit. You're going to see something very different, soccer-centric, that'll be mobile with Inter Miami. And I think it'll be a very cool concept for the kids and for youth with coaches and our team players. You're going to see our outreach to the community unparalleled by any other sports franchise here in South Florida.
And some of these clinics or soccer events, will they be free?
They're all, yes, they'll be free, absolutely, or affordable, absolutely. As you guys know, I said before, you know, we're gonna, you know, the pay-to-play model shouldn't restrict a young man or young woman from aspiring to be a great soccer player, and we're gonna help to do that.
You actually, that last thing reminded me of a question I almost forgot to ask. Women's soccer.
Yes.
What role do you foresee Inter Miami CF playing in bringing women's soccer, not only at the youth level, but also potentially at the professional level to South Florida?
You will see Inter Miami doing that. We're already in discussions with what we consider to be the preeminent girls soccer academy, happens to be located in Broward. I think you'll see an affiliation with Inter Miami. You know, the professional league is struggling. We will be proactive in doing that. You will see us engaged in girls soccer. That will happen. My daughter played soccer, so you know, I have like a vested interest in making sure girls have the same or better opportunities than young men do. So you will see us do that. That'll be a secondary rollout. We've got a lot of on our plate right now, as we've discussed here, but that's ongoing. So we are in conversations. You may see something there. I'd say probably in the fall, definitely.
Next to last question, and we will let you go. We're very appreciative of your time. As we mentioned before we started recording, we cover soccer, we like to think soup to nuts here in Dade County.
Yes.
And that includes a number of lower level league teams. And there are fans of those lower level league teams that look at Inter Miami CF with a skepticism. They're worried that their clubs that have been established, whether they're UPSL or NPSL or former NASL and all those entanglements that generally have nothing to do with you, but they're concerned that lower level soccer is going to get squeezed out of Miami by MLS. Have you or your ownership group taken steps to reach out to those lower level league sides, and do you foresee a future where Inter Miami and those lower level sides can coexist?
Well, I hope we can coexist. I'm hoping there's a sufficient market of passion and enthusiasm for those teams. Obviously, it's not our intent to hurt anyone.
Sure.
Our sporting team, I know, has been in contact with some of those teams. I don't know if all, frankly, I can't speak because I don't know. But it's our intention that, there's a big pie. There should be enough for everybody. I would hope that, those teams that are successful in their respective leagues continue to do so, and they can count on our support where we can be helpful. But no, it's not our intention here to come. I gain nothing by dominating the market or eliminating someone. We're in search to put a great product on the field, give a great fan experience, and give something to Miami that they don't have today.
Okay. Last question from me. You came on board again about a little under 18 months ago.
Yes.
Big announcement January of 2018 about the direction of the club, and a lot of things happened very quickly. Your involvement appeared to re-energize the bid again. You and the rest of the ownership group was pretty candid about the fact that if not for you, this was going away.
Right.
You have now been in this in the spin cycle of this for a year. Where have you found the greatest struggle in terms of trying to get this over the line, and where have you found the greatest joy in terms of trying to make this happen?
I'll start with the greatest joy first. Has been the extreme amount of fan support we've received. The reception for our team has been extraordinary. I had no idea the passion for soccer and football here, the hunger for people to want to coalesce and rally around a team that everybody can call their own. That's been my greatest joy. The greatest joy is seeing our community really get behind this overwhelmingly. That's been phenomenal, which gives me energy and passion to make sure we get this done. The greatest frustration, if we may so call it, I don't call it disappointment, I call it the greatest frustration. It's been a difficult political process for something that I think, frankly, has all benefits. Listen, every other sports team here are all heavily publicly funded. I'm not even going to get into the Jeffrey Loria Martin's deal, right? They're all heavily funded. They're still heavily funded publicly with taxpayers. what is it going to take to make it happen here? I'm super confident we'll make it happen, but that has been frustrating, just seeing that difficulty, because coming from the private sector, coming from an area where we tend to do things in a highly efficient, fast manner, and I know government doesn't work like that. I get it. And I understand it, but again, the political process has been. You asked me a question. I'll be very honest in the answer. It's just been frustrating. It's taking a little longer than we would have wanted it to, but it will be well worth the wait.
Okay, Mr. Mas, we want to thank you very much for your time today. Abel, thank you as always. Excellent questions on your part, and as I mentioned, Spanish language radio star now.
Oh yeah, a couple times.
Like that. I think that was actually kind of the tie that bound last week that got us in touch with Mr. Mas. So, Abel, thank you very much this afternoon for coming out.
Yeah, always glad to listen
to
soccer.
Yes, and so until next time, if you're watching this live, we will have the full video posted on our website very shortly. You can actually just watch the live broadcast back again. We'll also have some clips available too, and we'll have the audio in our podcast feed hopefully tomorrow, assuming technology works out for us. But until next time, this has been Magic City Soccer. Go Inter Miami CF, and go Miami Soccer.